What does it mean to be truly one in a billion? Not lucky, not famous, but biologically unlike almost anyone else who has ever walked this earth. Today, we're going to meet some of the most extraordinary people alive, individuals whose conditions are so rare that science barely has names for them, people who faced cruelty, isolation, and pain that most of us can't imagine, and somehow found the strength to keep going. These aren't just medical curiosities, these are human beings with dreams, with love, and with a resilience that will leave you speechless. This is the story of the rarest people on Earth. In 2012, a little girl named Runa Begum was born in Bangladesh. From the moment she came into the world, it was clear that something was different. Runa was born with hydrocephalus, a condition where cerebrospinal fluid accumulates inside the skull, creating enormous pressure on the brain and causing the head to expand far beyond its normal size. Runa's head circumference reached 94 centimeters, more than twice the size of a typical adult human head. Think about that for a moment. A baby girl, born into a world that was already difficult, carrying a weight on her small shoulders, quite literally, that no child should have to bear. Her head was so large and so heavy that she couldn't stand, couldn't sit up on her own, and could only lie down. The skin on her scalp stretched so tightly over her skull that it pulled down over her eyes, leaving her in complete darkness. She could not see. She could barely move, but she was alive, and her mother refused to give up. After extensive medical care and multiple surgeries performed in India, doctors were able to drain the excess fluid and reduce Runa's head circumference to approximately 58 centimeters. It was still larger than average, but she could now open her eyes. She could see the world for the first time. Her mother described watching her daughter begin to respond, to look up, to react. As a miracle, she had prayed for every single day. Runa's story is just beginning, and the strength she has already shown tells us it's going to be a remarkable one. Muhammad's story begins with something that most parents never have to prepare for, the slow realization that their child's hands were growing and weren't going to stop. Muhammad was diagnosed with a rare, localized form of gigantism, affecting only her hands. While most people with gigantism experience overall body growth, Muhammad's condition was almost unheard of, confined entirely to her upper extremities. From her wrist to the tips of her fingers, her hands measured approximately 33 centimeters, roughly the length of a standard school ruler. Daily life became a constant negotiation with a body that didn't cooperate. Dressing herself, eating a meal, turning a door handle, tasks that most of us complete without a second thought, required enormous effort and patience. And then there was the cruelty of other people. Muhammad grew up enduring mockery and ridicule, but something remarkable happened. Rather than shrinking away, she learned to laugh, not because the pain wasn't real, but because she refused to let it define her. Her family, living in poverty, couldn't afford the monthly medical care that cost as little as $15, a heartbreaking reality for a condition that was entirely treatable. When her story reached the internet, the response was immediate. People from around the world reached out, medical professionals stepped in, and Muhammad finally received the surgical intervention that could reduce the size of her hands and give her more control over her own life. Her perseverance, quiet, stubborn, and deeply human, is the kind of strength you don't find in textbooks. Sharini Yadav was born in India in 2001, and from very early in her life, she experienced something that most of us take completely for granted, the discomfort of her own skin. Sharini was diagnosed with Lamellar Ichthyosis, a rare genetic disorder that causes the skin to regenerate far too quickly. Instead of the normal 28-day skin cycle that most people experience, her skin peels and sheds roughly every 6 weeks, leaving painful, raw, and visibly different skin in its wake. It wasn't just physically painful, it was socially devastating. At school, Sharini was bullied relentlessly. She was called names, excluded, and verbally abused by classmates who didn't understand or didn't care that she had no choice in how she looked. Her parents, struggling financially, could not afford the specialized treatment that might have brought her some relief. For years, it seemed like this would simply be her life, painful, isolated, and without hope of improvement. Then, in 2017, a team of doctors in Spain heard about Sharini's condition. They chose to treat her completely free of charge. There is no cure for Lamellar Ichthyosis, but with proper care and management, her condition improved significantly. Today, Sharini has a goal that speaks to the depth of her character. She wants to work alongside doctors one day, helping other people who live with the same condition she has endured. She didn't just survive. She chose to become part of the solution. In 1979, a boy was born in rural China with an unusual amount of hair on his body. By the time he was 2 years old, his parents noticed long strands growing from inside his ears. By the time he was an adult, 96% of his body surface was covered in thick, dark hair. Zhenhuan holds the Guinness World Record for being the hairiest person in the world, a title officially confirmed in 2002. The condition has no confirmed medical name and appears to have no hereditary link. No one else in his family has ever experienced anything like it. Scientists believe it may be an extreme expression of a dormant genetic trait, an evolutionary echo from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Growing up was brutal. Yu was called a caveman. He was stoned by other children. No one wanted to be near him. As a teenager and young adult, he fell into deep depression, and at his lowest point, considered ending his life, but then something shifted. Zhenhuan decided to stop hiding and start living. He auditioned for television. He starred in productions, including a children's adventure series. He became, almost overnight, a cultural figure, someone who took something society told him was shameful and turned it into a platform. His story is a reminder that the things that make us different, even the things that cause us pain, don't have to define the limits of our lives. Sometimes they open doors we never expected. Adam Pearson is a British actor and television presenter. You might recognize him from documentaries, talk shows, or major films. What you might not know is that the condition that shapes his appearance almost derailed his entire life before it started. When Adam was 5 years old, he and his twin brother were playing outside when Adam suffered a blow to the head. A lump developed, and it didn't go away. At the hospital, doctors delivered a diagnosis: neurofibromatosis, a genetic condition that causes tumors to grow along nerve tissue. In Adam's case, it caused large, soft growths to develop externally across his face and head. His twin brother has the same underlying condition, but experienced it internally, leading to short-term memory issues rather than visible changes. Adam never asked, "Why me?" He never described his condition as unfair. Instead, he walked into auditions, sat in front of cameras, and did the work. He has spoken publicly about disability, representation, and the difference between being stared at and being seen. Today, Adam Pearson is one of the most visible advocates for people with visible differences in the entertainment industry. He didn't get there despite his condition. In many ways, he got there because of the courage it required him to develop. In May 2014, a boy named Jackson Bill was born in Florida. His parents were overjoyed. That joy broke almost immediately. Doctors discovered that Jackson had been born with severe hydrocephalus, but in his case, it wasn't just fluid buildup. Critical structures of his brain were simply absent. The cerebellum, the region that controls movement and coordination, had not fully developed. Doctors told his parents gently, but clearly, they did not expect Jackson to survive more than a few weeks. They suggested taking him home to spend whatever time remained together, but Jackson's parents refused to say goodbye before they had to. They brought their son home. They learned his cries, his signals, the way he communicated without words. They fought for him every single day. Jackson didn't survive weeks. He survived 5 years. In 2020, Jackson Bill passed away peacefully. He never ran. He never spoke in full sentences, but he smiled. He recognized voices. He responded to love. And in doing so, he changed the lives of everyone who knew him and the thousands of people who followed his story online. His life was short, but it was never small. Eli Thompson entered the world in 2015, and immediately, his doctors noticed something that had never seen before in their careers. Eli was born without a nose. The condition, called congenital arrhythmia, affects fewer than 100 people worldwide. Scans during pregnancy had shown nasal bones forming normally. There was no warning, and then suddenly, a baby boy with a perfectly smooth space where his nose should have been, without a nasal passage. Eli couldn't breathe through his nose at all. He breathed entirely through his mouth, which required a breathing tube, one that his parents had to clean and maintain multiple times every single day. When Eli cried, no sound came out. His parents had to watch his face constantly to know when he needed them. And yet, ask his parents what Eli was like, and they'll tell you: happy, curious, loved beyond measure. His doctors outlined a long-term plan involving surgery to create a nasal passage as he grew. His parents prepared for a journey that would require patience, vigilance, and an enormous amount of love. They were ready because Eli was worth every moment of it. In India in 1944, a woman named Daljinder Kaur was born. She married. She hoped to have children, and for decades that hope remained unfulfilled. Then, in April 2016, at the age of 72 years old, Daljinder Kaur gave birth to her first son. Through IVF treatment, she and her husband, who was in his 80s, welcomed a baby boy into their lives. The medical community took notice. So did the world. Carrying a pregnancy at 72 placed extraordinary demands on her body. Weakened bones, high blood pressure, and the sheer physical exhaustion of caring for an infant at an age when most people are grandparents. Her son was small at birth, and there were early concerns about his weight, but Daljinder was determined. She had waited her entire life for this child. She was not going to falter now. Today, her son is growing up healthy, and Daljinder, against every expectation, is raising him. Whether or not we agree with the decisions she made, one thing is undeniable. The love she has for that boy is as fierce as any mother's on earth. Not every rare person was born with a condition they didn't choose. Some people are rare because of what they built. Kevin Fast is a pastor from Cobourg, Ontario, Canada. He is also, by nearly every measurable standard, one of the physically strongest human beings who has ever lived. Kevin holds 19 Guinness World Records, including pulling a 208-ton commercial airplane with his body alone, towing a 6-ton fire truck over 30 meters, carrying 22 people on his back simultaneously, pulling a 40-ton house. He began weightlifting at the age of 12 and has followed a disciplined daily training regimen ever since. But here's what makes Kevin Fast truly remarkable. He didn't do any of this for fame. He's still a pastor. He still shows up for his congregation every week. His record-breaking career began in 1998 on a quiet impulse. He wanted to know what he was capable of. More than 2 decades later, he's still finding out. Kevin Fast is proof that sometimes the rarest thing in the world isn't a diagnosis. It's a person who refuses to stop pushing, who keeps asking the question, how far can I actually go? Every person we met today faced something the rest of the world couldn't fully understand. Some faced it in pain, some in isolation, some in the spotlight they never asked for. But every single one of them found, in their own way, on their own terms, a reason to keep going. And that might be the rarest thing of all. If their stories moved you, share this video. Leave a comment about the person who surprised you most. And if you know someone whose story deserves to be told, someone rare, someone resilient, let us know below. Before you go, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, you're exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. Hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it helps this story reach someone who needs to hear it today. Someone out there is going through something hard, and a video like this might be exactly what reminds them that they are not alone. Subscribe if you haven't already. Every week, we bring you stories from the edges of human experience, stories of survival, of science, of people who refuse to be defined by what the world handed them. You don't want to miss what's coming next. And turn on the bell notification, because these videos go fast, and we don't want you to be the last one to find out. Now here's something we genuinely want to know. Out of every person we covered today, Runa, Mohammed, Sharini, Zhenhuan, Adam, Jackson, Eli, Daljinder, and Kevin, whose story hit you the hardest? Drop their name in the comments. We have a question for you. Do you believe people like these are born rare, or do they become rare through the way they choose to live? Comment born or chosen below. We're genuinely curious. Thank you for watching. See you next time.